The motorcade moved slowly through the bright Dallas morning, sunlight gleaming off the polished chrome. Crowds lined the streets, waving flags and craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the young president who had become a symbol of hope in a turbulent world. John F. Kennedy sat beside his wife, smiling, unaware that the next few seconds would cut history in half. People cheered, cameras clicked, and for a moment, the nation felt safe behind that smile. Then came the sound that shattered everything, sharp, violent, and impossible to forget. In that frozen second, time seemed to tear open. A man who carried the dreams of millions fell forward, and the world changed. The country gasped, television sets flickered, and grief swept across cities like a dark cloud. On that day, America lost far more than a president. It lost the innocence of believing that good people were protected by destiny. But long before that moment, before the motorcade and the cheering crowds, before the shadow that followed him into Dallas, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was simply a sickly boy from a powerful but troubled family, a boy who was never expected to survive, much less change a nation. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. He was born in 1917 in Brookline, Massachusetts, in a large Irish Catholic family fueled by ambition. His father, Joseph Kennedy, was a wealthy businessman and political strategist who measured life by power and victory. His mother, Rose, was disciplined, religious, and determined to raise children who would leave their mark on the world. But in the midst of wealth, young Jack faced a quiet war inside his own body. As a child, he was constantly ill. He suffered from scarlet fever, chronic back pain, and unexplained sickness that kept him in hospital beds more than school desks. While his brothers played sports and chased adventure, Jack often lay alone, reading history books and imagining worlds far beyond his room. He grew fascinated with heroes who stood up for justice, men who carried heavy burdens, and leaders who believed their lives were meant for service. His family life shaped him, too. The Kennedys competed over everything: grades, sports, accomplishments. His father pushed them relentlessly, telling them, "There are no failures in this family." Jack learned early what it meant to hide weakness, to dress pain in a smile, and to keep moving regardless of how much it hurt. In that environment, he became thoughtful, witty, and quietly rebellious, the boy who studied people as closely as he studied books. One of the greatest influences in his life was his older brother, Joe Jr. Joe was strong, confident, and charismatic, the one his father believed would become the first Kennedy president. Jack admired him deeply and often followed in his shadow. But in that shadow, he discovered something else: the desire to make a difference in his own way, even if the world expected him to be second best. The spark came during his college years at Harvard, when history and politics began to move from books into his bloodstream. He traveled to Europe and saw firsthand the rise of fascism. He listened to stories from diplomats, watched tensions build between nations, and felt the world tilting toward war. Something stirred in him, a recognition that leadership mattered, that freedom was fragile, and that someone had to stand for the values he believed in. Still, no one took Jack seriously. He was seen as charming but fragile, intelligent but unfocused. His constant illnesses made people doubt he could ever live a demanding public life. Even his father, who groomed Joe Jr. for greatness, saw Jack as the spare, not the one destined to lead. But Jack proved them wrong when he wrote his Harvard thesis on Britain's unpreparedness before World War II. The work was so sharp and insightful that it was published as a book, Why England Slept. It became a bestseller, surprising everyone, including Jack himself. For the first time, he saw the power of his voice. Then the world descended into war. And Jack, determined to step out of his brother's shadow, joined the U.S. Navy. What happened next reshaped him forever. Jack was assigned to command a patrol torpedo boat in the Pacific. At 26, he was thin, plagued by back pain, and looked nothing like a war hero. But there, in the dark waters near the Solomon Islands, he faced a test that would define his life. One night, his boat, PT-109, was cut in half by a Japanese destroyer. 2 crew members died instantly. The survivors clung to the wreckage, injured, terrified, stranded in enemy waters. Jack, though hurt himself, took command. He gathered the men, pulled a wounded sailor by a life jacket strap clenched in his teeth, and swam miles to a small island. For days, he led them, searching for food, signaling for help, refusing to give up even when hope thinned to almost nothing. This was his first real battle, not against an army, but against despair. When they were finally rescued, the nation saw him differently. He had proven that leadership was not about strength of body, but strength of will. But tragedy struck again. His beloved brother Joe Jr., the one his father believed was destined for greatness, was killed in combat. The loss tore through the Kennedy family like a storm. Jack suddenly carried the weight of his father's unfulfilled dreams. He returned home with a broken back, a grieving heart, and a new understanding of sacrifice. He entered politics not out of ambition but out of obligation, and a genuine desire to serve the country he nearly died for. Yet the road was brutal. He battled constant pain, underwent risky surgeries, and spent weeks at a time in hospitals. He hid his illnesses from the public, determined not to be seen as weak. Behind every speech, every handshake, every campaign appearance was a man fighting silent agony. Politically, he faced resistance too. He was young, inexperienced, Catholic, a combination that stirred doubt and prejudice. Many believed America would never elect a Catholic leader. Others thought he was a wealthy playboy with a famous last name and nothing more. But Jack kept pushing through every closed door, every whispered insult, every night he had to lie flat on his back to ease the pain. He understood struggle deeply, and it made him relatable, even if the world didn't yet know the battles he fought in private. The breakthrough came in 1960, when he announced his run for president. His campaign electrified the country. He spoke of a new frontier, of hope and courage, of the belief that Americans could do great things if they dared to dream. His youth became an advantage, his eloquence a weapon, and his optimism a refreshing wind in a weary nation. The televised debate against Richard Nixon was the turning point. On screen, Kennedy appeared calm, confident, and prepared. Nixon looked tired, pale, and uneasy. It was the first time television shaped a presidential election, and Kennedy used it masterfully. Millions saw him not just as a candidate, but as a leader who belonged in the future. When he won, he became the youngest elected president in American history. Crowds filled the streets. Children waved flags. Families gathered around radios and televisions to hear his voice. But no moment captured the spirit of that breakthrough more than his inauguration speech. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The words echoed across generations. Kennedy had become more than a leader. He had become a symbol of purpose. But great power always brings great storms. And Kennedy walked straight into one. The Bay of Pigs invasion, a secret plan to overthrow Fidel Castro, failed disastrously. American-backed forces were captured. The world mocked the young president. Critics declared him weak. His enemies predicted his political death. In private, Kennedy was devastated. He took full responsibility, but the humiliation cut deeply. Then came the Cuban Missile Crisis. The world teetered on the edge of nuclear war. Kennedy faced pressure from military advisors urging immediate attack. But he resisted, choosing negotiation over destruction. For 13 tense days, he balanced fear and diplomacy, eventually forcing the Soviet Union to remove its missiles from Cuba. The world breathed again. But the stress aged him, drained him, and reminded him how fragile peace truly was. He also faced personal challenges, health problems worsening, political enemies growing, and a nation divided by civil rights battles. He struggled with the moral weight of racism in America, knowing that supporting equal rights could cost him votes. But he moved forward anyway, calling civil rights a moral issue and pushing the nation toward justice. Yet behind the public victories were private burdens. Deadly illness hidden from the world, overwhelming stress, and enemies who saw him as a threat. By the time he traveled to Dallas in November 1963, he was both hopeful and exhausted, a man trying to unite a country pulling itself apart. When Kennedy was assassinated, the nation stopped. People cried in living rooms, in churches, in schools. The world mourned a leader whose story felt unfinished. But what remained was not the tragedy, it was the legacy. Kennedy inspired a generation to believe in service. His vision led to the Peace Corps, sending young Americans across the globe to help build schools, teach children, and support communities. His courage during the Cuban Missile Crisis kept the world from nuclear war. His stand on civil rights laid the groundwork for the historic laws that followed. His dream of sending a man to the moon reshaped science, technology, and imagination. But perhaps his greatest gift was the belief that leadership could be compassionate, modern, and full of hope. He showed that a president could speak to the hearts of ordinary people. He proved that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to rise in spite of it. John F. Kennedy lived only 46 years, but his impact stretches far beyond his time. He once said, "A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on." And his idea, the call for people to serve something greater than themselves, still echoes across generations. As we remember him, we are reminded of our own possibilities. That even flawed humans can do extraordinary things. That pain does not erase purpose. That hope is still a powerful force in the world. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.